If you're like me, I can't wait for Aion 2. There are a lot of things that seem problematic right now, but there's so much that we have yet to see that I think we should just give it an honest shot. This video is not going to be going over the live stream or any of the technical things that we've seen. I just kind of want to go over where my head's at and what I look forward to with this game, as well as what I might be concerned about. So with that, let's jump right in. First off, pay to win is obviously the number one thing on people's minds, and for good reason. NCSoft has an absolute horrible reputation with this. It's not only NCSoft, it's Korean games in general, but NCSoft specifically has a very bad track record. I think the stance that they've taken on this is honestly kind of bullshit. They seem to be trying to toe the line between, yes, there is pay to win, but not as much as you would think, so it's okay, right? One thing that gets me is you can't monetize retention. You have to earn retention. And this is what I fear NCSoft is going to do. They're going to open up the servers with a little bit of monetization, kind of slow burn, so to speak. And over time, as people leave, they're going to try to squeeze the remaining population out of as much money as they can. NCSoft, if you ever see this video, please just know, don't do that. That is the quickest way that you're going to kill this game. If you can resist the urge to monetize power progression, player progression actually in general, anything that has to do with the core gameplay loop, like dungeon scrolls and stuff like that, enchanting. If you can resist the urge to do that, I truly believe this game will be a huge comeback story for NCSoft, and they will retain a ton of players. But if they do, it's going to be like every other MMO where there's a huge influx and then everyone's going to be gone in 3 months. Now, I don't know how much of this is true, but I have noticed a bit of a shift, or at least people talking about a bit of a shift when it comes to the East and the West market. Traditionally, Korean MMOs and just Eastern MMOs in general, they operate on this very heavy pay-to-win monetization scheme because it's very widely accepted. I think, and I hope, that we are starting to see a shift in some of those populations. If that's true, then I think NCSoft has to take a different stance when it comes to Aion and any future IP that they really have. Again, I don't know how much of this is legit. It's just stuff that I have seen kind of talked about here and there. It could be complete nonsense. I'm hoping that it's true, because then it would be the benefit for everybody. But all in all, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see what NCSoft's monetization plan for this is. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be a free-to-play title with a slow burn pay-to-win model, which is kind of unfortunate. But I'll remain optimistic and hope that it just works itself out in the end. The other concern that I have is how complex the progression is going to be. That's everything from player progression to like crafting progression, horizontal, vertical progression, just the progression systems in the game in general. So those of you that have played Aion 1, like early, back in like 1.0, 1.x, 2.x, 3.x, the progression systems were fairly simple, but deep enough to where you could really get into them without having to, one, hand over your credit card, right? That was the biggest thing. Two, it was deep enough to where you could really get into it without feeling like you have to have some like stats degree to understand what's going on, and also start tracking all these different currencies. One thing that I think led to Aion's downfall was there was too much going on. You went from just having to worry about enchanting your gear to having to worry about enchanting different pieces of your gear that now have different progression systems attached to it, like bracelets and feathers that did different things. Then that transformed to now you have to also worry about enchanting your skills and stigmas and stuff like that. When you put too much stuff like this in the game, first of all, for new players, it just becomes unplayable because you're just going to get lost. Everything, it's so oversaturated with these just like bloated RNG progression systems that a new player is not going to want to get into it. But two, that is their in for pay to win monetization. That is their excuse to just over monetize these systems that they really shouldn't be there in the first place, and they don't have to be there. They're just there for the sake of, hey, we've got something new for you to do. If we make it, they'll come, sort of thing. And not really along the same line, but along the line of progression complexity, I really hope that the amount of skills that we get in these different classes are going to not only allow us to feel like we're playing a gladiator or a sorcerer or a spirit master, but really lock in that like class identity. A lot of games throughout the years have done away with what they would consider bloated skills that they don't do anything, but they are a clever just addition to the class that, yeah, they might not have combat utility, they might not really have any gameplay utility, but they're there and they look cool, right? Another concern that I have is with the combat system. I understand that we have moved up and away from the traditional top-down, click, tab, target, MMO sort of combat like World of Warcraft or like Aion 1 used to be. I know a lot of traditional Aion 1 players that love, and that's one of the things that they loved about Aion 1 was the combat and how it felt and how you couldn't really put your finger on it, but it was just such a fluid, freeing experience when compared to other MMOs of its time at that time. So what I mean by that is right now, World of Warcraft plays much different than World of Warcraft from 2008, right? A lot of the same core gameplay mechanics are there, but it has evolved over time. At the time of 2008, when Aion came out, it felt same, but very different, but in a good way. And it was the one thing that a lot of people praised it for. My concern is they went the route of action combat, pruned a lot of the class identity and strategy of using a lot of different skills. They pruned it down to like one hotbar, maybe like, 6 or 7 skills. And it's gonna feel very mobile-like. That is my fear. I really hope they don't do that. And we don't know from any of the trailers that we've seen if that's the case. But I just hope there's enough there for us to really sink our teeth into. And there's enough depth there where you can really get into a class and learn it. And it feels like an accomplishment instead of given 3, 4, 5 skills and you're like, wow, that took me 3 seconds to figure out what the optimal rotation for that is. And it really doesn't take a lot of brain power, right? That's my main fear. Now, with that said, that's really all I have to complain about. There are more you could complain about that I have heard different complaints, but as far as myself, I'm actually just kind of optimistic about the rest of it. Like free flying, if it ends up being like what they said it was, man, we have been asking for that. And I know there was or we have been told that there was technical limitations, but we have been asking for that since like you get in and you get into the original Aion servers back in like 2008. You get into that area where you can fly and everyone is like, yo, why can't we do this everywhere? This is awesome. Like this is the identity of Aion, was that you had flying combat. And the fact that you couldn't do it everywhere and it was so restrictive, I think that sucked about the first one. And that was definitely a place that they should have, and it sounds like they did improve on. So that is something I'm actually pretty hyped for. Also, the fact that it's being made in UE5 is very good. Yes, it's going to be more intense on your system, but there's going to be a lot more tools for optimization, and it gives them a lot more to play with just to make the game better. I'm really happy that they reversed their decision and they went back to the faction system. That would have been a very odd choice to make Aion 2 without the ability of choosing Ilios or Asmo. I'm actually kind of let down a little bit that you can't choose to be a Balar. That would have, I think, been the best scenario. But I'm happy they walked it back. The only thing about that's kind of weird, and I'm not sure how that's going to work, is the servers seem to be faction locked. So if you play on a server, you're going to be able to choose Ilios or Asmo like you could before, but you're not just going to see the opposite faction running around. So from your perspective on a server, there are going to be events that you can go in like Rift or PvP, but outside of those very specific events, the servers are going to be faction locked to the point that you're just going to see your own faction running around. You're not going to have open world PvP. Now that's what it sounds like. That could not actually be the way that it's going to be on launch. But from the translations that we've heard, that's what it sounds like. Another thing that I really hope that they address is crafting. Crafting was one of the things that, especially early days, like with the Miragent set, however you say it, that was a very strong and viable endgame 1.x-ish set. I hope they make crafting useful again to the point that you actually go to the crafting area and you see people not just mass crafting alchemy only, and you see a variety of different, crafting areas with a bunch of people in it. People are actually making money from it. Not everybody just literally goes and does the gathering, the aether tapping, and the alchemy, and they leave everything else alone because it's just a money sink and the stuff is crap anyway. I really hope it's not like that. I don't have much faith because I've yet to find a game that really carries crafting into like the highest of endgame. But that was one thing that I really missed about Aion 1 was the crafting was kind of RNG when it came to proccing, but it was fun. And the gear and the weapons, there were really good skins you can get from crafting. So I really just hope they kind of bring that back. Lastly, I hope that they don't prioritize PvE over PvP. As much as I did like PvE in original Aion, the game I don't think would have survived without that PvP focus pretty much almost anywhere that you went. One of the things that I seen so many servers and guilds rally around was, if you're on the Elio side, for example, there was just a ton of Asmos that would be rifting randomly in Eltnan, right? And you'd get tons of guilds that would just go out there and just start fighting. That kind of stuff is what keeps the game alive. Running dungeons over and over and over again and running raids over and over and over again is good. It's like half of it though. I think you need to, especially in an MMO like this, you need to have that PvP angle. And it sounds like they're putting PvE first, and I don't know if that's a good thing. We will find out, but again, I'm optimistic, but I hope they just don't leave PvP to the side where it becomes a challenge to try to seek it out. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that I didn't discuss that you may have been thinking about, and by all means, throw them in the comments. I want to see what everybody's been talking about. My mind has just been in a million different places because Aion 1 holds a very special place in my heart for me. It was the very first MMO that I got into. It really was like my gateway drug into getting into games in a way that I had never done before. And I really hope Aion 2 can bring some of that back. Not only for me, but for people who have not felt that way and have not had that experience in an MMO before. Hopefully, Aion 2 is everything that we wish and hope and think it's going to be. And we'll find out in a couple weeks when I think they're going to be doing their closed beta tests, I think. You have to have a Korean phone number in order to get into it, so I won't be able to, experience anything, but I will definitely be on the lookout, and I hope it's just everything that we want it to be. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.